Thank you. Thank you very much. As you can see, I'm a musician, acoustic musician. Guitar is my main tool. And so I'm inspired by the old-time American traditions, but I use creativity to bring this old music to new ears. And especially today in our kind of plugged-in cosmopolitan world, I think a lot of people still have a yearning for something simple and elemental, like the sound of a plucked string of an acoustic guitar. And so that's what I try to bring people. I started right out of college with an idea. I had a kooky group called the Sons of Rayon, and we were kind of an avant-garde bluegrass trio. And I had this idea, if you put Velcro on your feet, you could dance opposite of stomping on something. You'd lift your feet and make a sound. So I called it unclogging. So in those days, we had a lot of fun, and there was, a buzz going and stuff like that. And so that was kind of my entry into adult music profession. And then my next idea was Home on the Range, which was written in my father's hometown in Kansas, one of the greatest songs in the world, you could say. And people know this song everywhere. So I decided to research that song and other traditions of Kansas traditional music, and thus gave me 20 years of work playing traditional Kansas music, looking at history. And so I got to play for people of all ages, spent a lot of time in schools. Oh, by the way, there's my wife, Diana Werts, who is she's a visual artist, but she also plays music, and we like to work together. And so we worked a lot in schools. Oh, by the way, the Home on the Range led me to meet a guy named John McEwen, who was with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. He did a special on TV and wanted some musicians who played old-time music from all around the country. So got to be on TV with that. So Diane and I played schools. Sometimes we do 3 shows a day. We travel all over Kansas and Missouri. And along with raising our daughter, Molly, who grew up to be a symphony violinist. So we got to have some kind of cohesive home family life, which was very important to us. And so we just didn't want to be pulled apart by our art and our music. So these days, the next idea I had was I'm going to go solo, and I'm going to get to where I can sing, play my guitar, and just stretch out all on my own in front of a group of people, which oddly enough led to several new groups. And I still go out and play solo, but I'm playing with Connie Dover, who's a Celtic singer, Polk Salad Orchestra out of Wichita, kind of chamber music with a beat. We do a lot of improvising. Tiny Flowers is local here. There's Diana on her accordion and Alan Winkler on percussion. And then Strange Angels represents something I do with a composer friend of mine who writes avant-garde new music, which involves elements of traditional music, free improvisation, odd notations, the whole thing. So that keeps life interesting, having all these different irons in the fire. One of the things I spend a lot of my time doing is recording in my own home studio. And so I'm able to work with especially emerging musicians who don't have experience recording. They're not comfortable in the big time studio. And so what I offer is a small, humble place that still has a professional quality sound. It's still the best gear, just not as big of a pile of stuff. And so I'm able to lend my years of expertise and help people like the Vote sisters here, who are just wonderful musicians. I have a clip here of some of the stuff that has been produced in my studio. It's about 1.5 minutes. So this first one It's a theme song from a KCPT show called Rare Visions and Roadside Revelations. And next is a clip from a singer-songwriter named Kelly Hunt, young singer who just finishing up her album project. Finally, here's a clip of a thing that I was asked to do for a radio station out in western Kansas, a weekly radio show. So this is the lead-in music, lead-out music. It's on every week. They mention my name at the end of the show, so it's kind of a nice thing. Called Little Spouse on the Prairie. So there's two guitars, a mandolin, and a banjo, all played by me, not simultaneously. So some of the challenges I face are typical of musicians. I would rather be at home practicing than out networking. If I'm at a party, I tend to be the wallflower. And there's also the distances. I tend to play in smaller markets. I play some around Kansas City, but really I might be out in the Flint Hills or somewhere playing. So there's distances to deal with, but I try to stay kind of close to home. And there's the element of balance, trying to honor the roots of the music while being creative, which it's not only my own concern, but how to reach an audience, because you play for some people and they really want to hear something authentic. You play for other people, they want to hear something that is cutting edge. So you're always walking that razor's edge. So, and then also keeping myself fit. And I'm always looking for new ways that I can touch people with music. There's the ways that we know of, and then there's the ways that we don't know about. And sometimes you can discover a new way that you can reach people with music. And I especially would like to work more with younger musicians the way I do in the studio. I like to do more performing also. It's exciting for me, and I do get to share a little bit of expertise with them as well. I also feel like CDs, it's hard to make money on CDs anymore, and streaming, you get a fraction of a penny for each stream. I'd like to find, some other ways of doing something that has an individual quality to it that I can use to sell music. So the things I'm working on are the usual networking and social media, that kind of thing, and trying to improve my contacts. For my own health and well-being, I try to exercise, do yoga. There's an Alexander Technique teacher in town who's new. Please ask me about her if you're interested. She's very good about teaching about body awareness and movement and stuff. Also, we're very excited about, we're putting together a satellite studio in Matfield Green, Kansas. That's out in the middle of the Flint Hills. And that's going to give us a new group of people to associate with, new kinds of inspirations because of the location. And also gives us a chance to drive down the highway and burn some gas. So, and I would also, I'm open to, doing something more conceptual outside of the model of you play a gig and they pay you. There's ways of getting grants that I've never done but would be interested in, where someone gives you a pile of money because you had a great idea. And so that could be interesting. So that's my scripted presentation. We've got 20 minutes or so for you to ask questions, give your thoughts, ideas, whatever. And there's a mic out here, yeah, with Susanna. Oh, thank you.
Great presentation. And who would like to kick off our question for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it harder to make money with CDs? Do they just not buy them anymore?
Well, these days, I mean, people my age, I love to buy CDs because I grew up when you hold an album in your hand and you listen to it all the way through and you look at the inner sleeves and everything. But the next generations are, you know, they're buying their music online, one song at a time oftentimes. And, you know, where I used to sell hundreds, thousands of dollars of CD in a year, you know, they're just at a trickle at this point. And so, not that I'm going to stop making them, you know, I made a CD and I think it helped me get a gig playing at Winfield at the Walnut Valley Festival because it showed that I was doing something. So there's still reasons to do that, but we're transitioning into something else, and nobody seems to know what that is because people aren't making much money unless they're big stars. I'll turn that off. Turn off your phone. Yeah. Andrew.
Thank you, lady.
Yeah.
Andrew the match seller, he spoke here before.
The like whole idea of like CDs and streaming and stuff is something we've been trying to think a lot about, and I don't 100% buy into the idea that like my generation and younger folks aren't interested in buying product, but it's generally more we're interested, or at least I find when we go on the road, people are interested in getting something that isn't just a CD. You know,
right.
Maybe like when we did Bluegrass Astronauts, we had like a whole sci-fi poster inside with like you know the stories in between the songs. And I was actually just listening to a group on the way here called the Yoppers, and they did like a little kind of comic book that sort of conceptually tied in with their album. And so I think there is like I think there still is you know some use for sort of that product, and comparing it to like your revenue to streams, it's like still a much higher income. You know, we make so much more money on CDs than we do streaming. We had something like 6,000 streams in the week when our album came out, and we're making like $16. So it's, you know, it's just kind of like, oh, if we could just put that effort into trying to sell 2 CDs, you know, then
right. That's right. Go on the street corner and you could maybe sell 3.
Which, it's probably, you know, coming from your perspective, you know, it's still probably definitely a decline, you know, in overall sales. But I still think people want to like hold something, you know, and if they like you, I think they still want to try to support you.
I agree with you, and that's one of the things I'm looking at. For example, Diane and I would like to put out a CD. She's an artist. Use a limited edition print as part of the package, for example. And you could take it home, open it up, frame the print. It's signed, you know, it's the real thing. It's really art, and listen to the music. And people are as materialistic as ever, which is, when I say materialistic, we like to hold something in our hands, and we like to bring something home with us that is delicious. And so I'm thinking the same thing, that there's ways of doing this that add something personal to it, because people know that somehow or other they can get a copy of your music. You know, they can by hook or by crook, they can get a copy of your music.
Because I know you sometimes go to Arizona too, right?
Let's see.
Have you done that in a while?
It's been a long while. Yeah, actually, New Mexico with Connie Dover years and years ago. Yeah.
So mainly you're regional.
I'm mainly regional. Connie and I are going to Nantucket in a couple months, so that's exciting. But usually it's just pretty much around here. And I don't mind that. I like thinking locally. You know, there's big time musicians who tour, and we all enjoy going to see them. And it's also nice to have, you know, people who are just blowing really good jazz right down the street. You know, people like our next presenter. So, you know, there's certainly a place for local music and regional music.
And maybe some of you know some good tricks, but we have a flyer on back on networking, especially geared to introverted. So we, and it talks about, you know, making a game for it and plan on talking to so many people, or pick a blonde in a, you know, a blonde in a blue shirt, you know, before you get in the room. So I'm going to talk to a blonde in a blue shirt and have so you can make some games out of it to really force, you know, to make it fun.
Get an M&M for each person you talk to.
Yeah. Here we go.
I was mostly, Kelly's gotten his recording work just through word of mouth. And I don't know if there's a way to upgrade how to get the word out about his talents in the studio. So maybe somebody has addressed
Back in the back there.
Well, we happen to be part of an organization that can do that for you.
All right.
Arts KC has a website. It's the Arts and Culture calendar for the city, and we've been working diligently on gathering these types of things. We have an artist directory also that you can, I think, Kelly, you actually just signed up for our artist directory recently, and you can...
Oh, Arts KC. Yes, I just got an email from you a couple days ago. Good. All right, good.
So there is resources out there, and afterwards, during the networking time, I can pass out our little posters.
Excellent. Good, thanks. I saw another hand over here somewhere.
I was just going to
Oh,
ask
yes.
if you were familiar with the Arts KC group.
Oh, there you go.
I also have those postcards as well.
Uh-huh.
We'll talk a bit about those during the
Yeah, Arts KC is a wonderful organization, and I've watched them, you know, through their permutations growing out of the, I think it grew out of the area arts council and everything, and so there's always been this wonderful growing energy to help artists in this town. I just think it's fantastic.
Let's flip to another slide.
Yeah.
Over. Other questions we have, they don't necessarily have to be in goals, but. Okay, right over here.
You said you started right out of college with an idea, and I just wanted to know like some of the things you did to like get your business going right out of college.
Well, I was pretty haphazard, you know, because I went to school, and they didn't have people like Arts KC that taught you how to make a business. And so I thought if I just practiced hard enough, someone would call me on the phone and ask me to perform. And so it took a while, and it took working with other musicians who were really go-getters to get things happen, which involve getting on the phone. And I don't know if getting on the phone is still it's a good way to get things done, and talking to people directly. You know, you send out an email to someone and you never hear back from them, and you don't know if they even heard you, but every once in a while you do get a response. You know, it's kind of like a shot in the dark. But in the old days, we'd send out, you know, mass mails, and it's the same thing. People would just get your mail and throw it away. So at least this way we're not wasting paper. There's someone at the back.
Nowadays people want to support a cause, so if you have a cause surrounding your music,
Mm-hmm.
I think you would get a lot of people that want to get on board with what you're doing. I don't know if there's anything outside of music that you're passionate about. You know, maybe it's helping blind kids produce music, or I don't know. But I think if you have some something like that behind what you're doing, and it has like purpose to it. Younger people kind of want to jump on board a lot with that kind of stuff.
Right. I like that too, and we have some of that going. Diana, as a painter, my wife, paints from nature, and she's especially interested in native plants and growing and so on. And so we'll play for the local growers clubs and stuff, and she'll paint that subject matter, and it all ties into this kind of thinking local kind of thing, where it's just the opposite of thinking big. Just get tired of thinking big, you know. I'm not sure it always moves us forward, sometimes it gets you out of the present. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was curious, you've got the studio you're setting up in Maddie Green, is that correct?
Oh, so in Matfield Green, it's a small town on I-77, southwest of Emporia, and it's a town that would otherwise be considered dying, except that there's been a lot of interest from artists and people in agriculture, symphony on the plains, people that has made it rightly attractive. I mean, it's a very scenic spot in Kansas, but that doesn't, keep it from dying unless people actually go out there and inhabit the place and bring some life to the town. So there's a little art gallery there. Down the road is Symphony on the Flint Hills, their offices in.
So is it a destination spot for musicians, or do you see kind of sourcing folks from around, or how are you supporting that? I'm curious.
So, well, let me give you an example. A mile away from Matfield Green is Pioneer Bluffs, which is an old farmstead that has been restored with a large barn, loft that's been rebuilt. And a couple months ago, I played a dance there. And this was not your typical barn dance. The first half of the dance was traditional. The second half, and this was all based on a grant called Jumpstar, which is saying 1,000 years from now, we're going to have a new star leading us north. And so what traditions will we have 1,000 years from now? A composer composed a dozen pieces of music that we played with a string band of musicians who had wide, diverse backgrounds. So it involved free improvisation, treatment of minimalist figures, and here this guy's out teaching people these new dance moves. And so they're going like, this is my favorite dance move. Remember? Exit to the back of the plane, to the side of the plane. So this was incredibly well received for such a kind of fringe, conceptual kind of event, and it was wonderful. And people turned out from the city and from all around the county. So there are just some interesting things happening there in this little place.
You mentioned the research that you did on Home on the Range and just your background with Americana roots music. Have you ever considered opportunities for scholarship where you can go out and do sort of lessons and to teach and maintain the tradition?
Well, in a way, that's what Diane and I did, mainly on the elementary school level, which is actually kind of fundamental because a lot of these kids had never heard turkey in the straw. These are the things that we just consider to be, you take it for granted that everyone would know these old traditional tunes, and here's these kids who didn't. So we felt like we were kind of right where the rubber meets the road by teaching these little kids this music. And then as far as like higher scholarship, I have done occasional lectures and stuff, but I'm really so much of an amateur, I don't know if I would qualify, but I do like the idea. And so that's a good thought. Thanks.
Well, ask our end question, and what can we do as a community to help you? So if there's any of your needs or anything we haven't touched upon today, we invite you to make a plea, and then we'll get together with you afterwards, either during the networking session, which follows this, or he has his business cards on the table, and you can connect with him on Facebook and through his website.
Right. Well, that's the main thing. Pick up my business card if you need my services, or if you know about any grants that are available in. I don't know. It's a big world of grants. So I know about some of them, but not most of them.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, and we look forward to hopefully networking with you later.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah.